Hi everyone, welcome back. Today, I got parts and I can finally get back to work. If you're new to the channel or a returning viewer or subscriber, thank you so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Tell your friends if you think they'd like this type of thing. Race car stuff, mostly. Fabrication, mechanics. What else do I do? Engineering, kind of. I don't know, it's all amateur stuff, so it's not like you're really going to learn a heck of a lot, which is kind of the point. This is basically just me learning in front of all of you and maybe imparting some knowledge every once in a while. Either way, we still got quite a while to go before we go racing again, which is good because considering the last couple videos and the spiders literally rappelling down my face, we have a lot of work to do. I got some parts, which hopefully this will actually work this time because it is a nice unit and it is a reputable brand that I trust implicitly with a lot of stuff that I do. They are also the manufacturers of my steering box. This is made by Sweet Manufacturing. Sweet made my steering box. I am going to, if you watched the last video or two, you noticed that I had a little bit of a part issue that if it was a street car, I wouldn't have cared about. But since it's a race car, I demand precision. So we're gonna see if this fits and hopefully we can move forward from there. So you'll remember before that the old one that I bought off Amazon did not fit very well. Well, this fits a lot better. It's just not quite perfect, but I mean, what do you expect? Like I said, I have the old one. Let me see if this thing fits on this end as well. Very well. Might have to grind a little bit down. I didn't quite go crazy with it. Yeah, I think we're gonna have to grind it down a little bit, but to be honest with you, it's gonna work very well. If you tighten this thing down, hopefully it should take up any of that extra little bit of play, but this is better than the Amazon unit. Like I said in the last video, I have the factory, or not factory, but I have the old one that was on here, this Borgeson unit. This is the most precise fitting U-joint I've ever seen in my life. And if I knew that I could have just bought one off Amazon, which I saw after I already bought this one, I would have bought that again. So if we're gonna get this thing on the ground and strung again, we have to get this steering back to being functional. So I'm going to try to snake the welder through this pile of garbage that is my garage. And I'm going to touch up the steering shaft a little bit. There's some residual grind that needs to be done because I didn't quite knock all the weld off of the old one. And I'm just kind of looking around for tools at this moment, but we'll get that flattened out. We'll get this lined up. We'll get the, I'll probably leave it up on the jack stands and square the steering off and then slip everything together, lock off the steering shaft with the steering wheel in place to where I like it. Make sure it's squared one more time, make any final adjustments that I got to do, and then we'll weld it onto the steering shaft and hopefully be good to go. Okay, so I feel like that went pretty well. We got our new steering shaft goobed in here. I had to cut a lot of it off to get this one in because this one's a lot longer than the one that I cut out, which is fine. I'd rather it be longer than shorter. And I know what brand it is if the day ever comes where I have to replace it. So that's in. I got the steering re-squared in the car before I welded it in. And then I went and made sure, when I welded it in, that the steering was nice and square so that when I put my wheel on, it's going to look the right way, even though I usually don't even look at my wheel. I race by where my hands are and don't pay attention to the wheel. A lot of people are like, oh, I want a fancy steering wheel, like one of them $200 MPI or whatever they are, suede with a little line. And I'm just like, just throw the wheel in the car and hold on to it. So anyway, so the steering should be all set. She's got to go back on the ground, be restrung, and put all the geometry back through it and all that stuff. I also have to do the transmission. Now, I got this one, like I'd mentioned in a previous video. I got it with 2 gears missing. In the meantime, while I was waiting for gears, I rebuilt the whole thing and then never used it because, well, I couldn't. You know, the rules in every racetrack around here state that you have to have all the forward gears working. I had to wait for those to show up. I have another one of these, the same ratio that I rebuilt. It's just kind of sitting on the shelf over there. So I think I'll just chuck this one in. It's got a nice vent. It's all together. I already put fluid in it and everything. It should be functional. And like I said, it's rebuilt, so that should be ready to go. We can put that in. My main problem, though, is the rear end. And if anybody remembers me putting this rear together, it was a complete nightmare because it was a third option. And it was used gears, and I wasn't happy with it. And I basically put it together in a way where I just wanted the drive side to look good. You know, I wanted it to at least function and not completely wear out. The coast side sucked. The drive side looked fine. It never got hot either. I put a temperature probe or one of them infrared guns, and I would point it at the rear every time I went out on track. And it was like, I think the highest I saw it before the feature was like 85 degrees. So that means it's probably in good shape. It's not getting hot or burning up or nothing. But the problem is the only carrier I had was an open carrier. And I don't want to Lincoln locker this thing. I don't want to ruin carriers. And it's a weird carrier. It's like the single opening carrier. If I want to lock it up, I got to get a double hole carrier, which I don't have. It's at my brother's shop out in a different town. So I'm going to have to probably rebuild this rear end again, which kind of stinks. I mean, to be fair, I did exactly what I had to do in order to get to the racetrack, and we got there. And we learned a few things and noticed a few things on camera, and I feel like it was a worthwhile effort to go out there and kind of stink, but it was necessary, and we did that. So transmission's got to come out. We got a whole month plus. We got a month plus. Why don't we just take the rear end out? We'll get it set right. I'll put the right carrier in it. I'll put the right gears in it. I'll put all the right stuff in it. And we can do a better job than what we did here. Like I said, I was desperate. And I just needed to throw something together. And I had no time. I literally had 0 time. So we'll pull it apart. We'll get the whole thing taken down. So much work. I don't know how much I'm going to cram into this video, but I might take a nice stop by my brother's house tomorrow after work and see what he's got lying around, because I know I had a spare carrier that we took to New Hampshire, and I'm kind of searching my garage to see if I still have it, but I really don't think so. I think I might have left it at his house, but I think it's out of an S10. I think it had 373 gears on it, so it's the right carrier. It's a 3 series carrier, I think, so that's exactly what I need, and I might go bug him for it, and we'll see if I can get that off him and keep working with this project, and maybe it'll go back together properly instead of like with that carrier. It's the next day, and I came up with a better method to string the car. And it's something I should have been doing all along, but you know, I'm just glad that I'm learning this stuff now, because when it's going to apply in the future, it's going to be a lot more meaningful. So practice makes perfect on this one. So check this out. I got her back on turn plates. Like I said, I got her strung, measured at hub height, and I got my little cheater rod. Like if you had seen this in my last video where I strung the car a couple videos ago, I made this like device here. it's just a piece of conduit that I cut to a little longer than 16. It's like 20 inches. But then I cut a slot at 90 degrees at 16 inches. That's where I measure from. And I got it marked. And I've got holes in the body that I can measure out if I could do it. And you can see it's like 16 inches. But what I was missing before was this, my square. So I took this and painstakingly would set it down until it just touched the line. I would basically tap it until it just touched. And then I would measure to the line on this. So now it's a lot more precise. Another thing that I noticed though, ever since I tightened up the front end of the car, it's noticeably different. Like, let me get my tape measure out and I'll show you. For reference, I had this car strung a couple videos ago, and I got my big Stanley Fat Max, big old not gonna bend tape measure out. And it was straight, essentially. I believe it was a 16th or something. Let me see. You know what? We're standing here. That says exactly 8. And that says, yeah, exactly the same. It was 7 and 15/16. So it was a 16th towed out. So however we did it before is exactly the same as it is now. And I didn't change any springs or anything. I just put it back on the ground. So for, well, giggles, let's just say, what's this say here? That says 8 and, well, let's get it right. 8 and 3/8. Okay, what's it say up here? Oh, 7 and 7/8. Yeah, actually it's 7 and 13/16. Remember, we strung this car and set the tie rods so that the sides were completely straight before we found the suspension issue, right? If math serves me correctly, which, let's be fair, I went to school for engineering, and I'm not an engineer because of math, that's 9/16 of an inch towed out. Not a half inch. 9/16 of an inch towed out. Now I'm curious, because I did square the front end of this car before putting it on plates. I did my dual vice grip trick. Now, something doesn't seem right with this side. I'm going to have to check that hole down there because I think something might be interfering. So we're going to have to remeasure this side because that left rear tire is saying something completely different as to what I used to have when I strung it before. When I strung it before, that was straight within a 32nd of an inch. That side was within a 16th. The car is at ride height. The body roll could be a little different. Who knows? Because a 4-link will change your skew of the rear axle, just how these cars work. But I did check the front here, and it says that it is towed out. I think it said towed out. Let me see. I can just take a look at it now and see that it is. Let's see, it says this. Yeah, it's either towed out a quarter. It seems awful strange because the numbers on the trailing edge of the back tire to the front edge of the back tire to the trailing edge of the front tire to the leading edge of the front tire are all in descending order. Like it's really wide in the back of the car and it completely narrows at the front. So something's messed up. I'm gonna have to remeasure this side. The right side, there shouldn't be anything in the way. And things are falling over in my shop. I don't know what it is. I hope it's not alive. But there might be something in here on the left side. I noticed I was getting some difficult measuring interferences when I was doing this rear one. So I'm gonna go underneath here and I'm gonna see if I can figure out what's wrong because this shouldn't be this far off, especially on the rear wheel. Okay, so I'm at the point where I've measured 6 ways from Sunday. I used levels, plumb bobs, squares, all sorts of fun stuff. And I absolutely cannot figure out why I'm getting a little bit of a different reading here. I really should check the tire pressures just to make sure that the ride heights are as set, but I will get to that in a minute. Because it is reading that this tire is towed in a 1/4 inch. So now I'm kind of curious as to whether or not I had the strings straight the last time, and it always was like this. Now, I have my quick jacks under the car, the big hydraulic ones that run off of this thing, and I have the thing way in the air. I took a floor jack and I jacked up each wheel off of the shock pickup, and this one went boom, and it like came out a little bit, and it like changed the reading, and this one didn't do anything because obviously I took all the tension off of this side already. So it's reading a 1/4 in, but down the frame rail, it's straight as it could possibly be. So obviously this rear is going to come out and be checked for straightness anyway because I have to rebuild it, as I'd mentioned before. So now that the line is perfectly straight with the chassis, I'm going to go check that front tire, see how bad the front alignment is off. So the tape measure's telling me that this tire is a 1/4 of an inch towed out, which is also strange because that tire was 9/16 towed out. And like I said, I'm actually being a lot more precise about stringing the car this time instead of just taking a thumb and going, it looks pretty straight. Yep, my eyes are perfectly fine. Don't worry about those. Like, I'm actually using a square and plumb bobs and levels and tape measures and making sure the lines are completely parallel to the chassis itself. And, you know, like I said, when we took all the slack up in the steering and in the suspension, a lot of stuff changed. Obviously, I got to be a little bit more fair with myself. You know, when I first strung the car, I did measure it a heck of a lot, and a lot of those measurements did come out to be rather decent. I mean, by how I measured it, I guess it wasn't the most perfect way. I probably was off by a little bit, especially the left side, because that gave me a lot of problems this time around. Right side's a little easier. There's not as much stuff in the way, like door bars and stuff, and it's at different heights, and it was a little easier to get to it. But like I said, that changed a lot. Like, by taking up all that slack, we had 9/16 of an inch towed out in the right front, a 1/4 inch towed out in the left front. I never touched the tie rods since the last time I strung the thing. And both times I strung it, the steering shaft was locked off. It's on turning plates to make sure there's no friction. And that's how much it changed. It changed almost an entire inch. I mean, obviously I'm not that great at math, but like 9/16 plus a 1/4, that's a lot. That's a heck of a lot, especially in the way of the steering and the track width and the suspension angles and stuff. Like, just looking at the toe after fixing all the slop in the front end is kind of appalling, honestly. Because how much was that slopping around out on the racetrack? If I took up the slack and we've got that much difference in toe alone, how bad is the front geometry on this car? I mean, okay, well, we got something to look forward to, and now we've got our eyes opened to the magic of stringing cars and being actually into the geometry of it. So I'm going to take a rest for the rest of the night. I'm tired and hungry, haven't eaten nothing, and I don't need to, obviously, but, you know, I'll be back out here tomorrow. Back in the shop the next day. I'm trying not to trip over these strings, but I'm so angry that I have to show you. Obviously, off camera, I have my road car that I commute to work with that it has probably 250,000 miles on it at this point, but it's a 2007 Ford Focus, and, well, it has a forever air filter in it, which is obviously not forever because it's only listed to last about 150,000 miles. I'm 100,000 past that, and they don't make replacements. But they do make these, which are technically replacements. It does bolt in. It does actually have all the right hookups and everything. But you can take these wing nuts off, and this little tray comes out, and you drop an air filter, just a paper filter in. And then basically you're supposed to be good to go. Wrong. While you can buy these air filters and these air filter assemblies, no problem. What you can't buy are the filters, because they designed it to run with I think it's like a Fram 7098 or equivalent, which is supposed to be at least one of the types of filters you can find in an old Saturn SC1, which is discontinued, and you can't buy it anymore. So you've got this nice, clean, brand new, whatever, air box that replaces the garbage forever filter, and you can't put an air filter in it. Luckily, though, this thing called eBay exists, and I was able to order one that's the same part number, so it probably won't fit, and I will probably wasted $100 trying to get that car back on the roads, just so it'll pass emissions. Wonderful. By the way, you can call yourself high quality all you want. That just doesn't mean that it actually is. Regardless, I'm going to get back to stringing this thing because I never pulled them up. I'll remeasure to make sure nothing moved or a mouse didn't try to chew through something or whatever. Anyway, and we'll start squaring the car off. Now, I want to make sure that at ride height, this thing is square because I want to start from 0. And then we can start doing all of the geometry stuff that I was supposed to do. Obviously, I've still got to rebuild that rear end because I need to put a different carrier in it, and that sucks, and I got to put another transmission in it, but one thing at a time. All right, so we're getting some results here with the old string. Like I said, I had to go through, I think I bumped that one on my way in today because this side was way off, but that side was fine. So I fixed this side, and the right rear is saying it's about a 32nd to a 16th out, but again, with how if you have a little bit more height one way or the other with the triangulated 4-link, it could change how the rear end skews in the car because ride height could pull the arms in certain angles, and that changes the length of the arms and all sorts of fun stuff. So that side is totally within spec. The left rear, however, says that it's towed in, which, yeah, if the right side's higher, that would be right. I was expecting a 16th like this, or a 32nd like this side. That's like 3/8. So that's telling me that the rear is likely bent. We're going to have to pull the rear out anyway. That means now we have to straighten it as well as rebuild it. Front end came out. I used my small tape measure over there because it has 30 seconds of an inch, and I set the front end square to a 32nd of an inch off of the parallel lines, off of the chassis. So hopefully the car is actually going to be squared off, and we got a good starting point. I know this is probably, well, should be done last, but we'll do it one more time, obviously, before we put the car on the racetrack or put it on scales or anything like that. But I just want to make sure that everything is square, the steering is square, it's repaired, everything's repaired, everything should be squared off. Next, I think we're going to have to start pulling the rear end out because that's going to need attention. Again, when you square the car off and you see one side being a 16th or a 32nd, and then the other side is 3/8 of an inch, yeah, that's not equal. So, yeah, we got to fix that. And at least I know that it's towed in from the end of the pumpkin inboard. I'll probably throw a port of power and some chains on it, see if I can't get her squared off, and hopefully, fingers crossed, I can actually get that thing straight. Rear needs a lot of attention. Front seems to be coming along. We got a lot of time left, and I have a couple days off of work now, so I can actually get some stuff done, probably have a little bit longer video. So I'm going to go hop on an iRacing server because I offered. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. So it's been a few days, and I have been doing non-stop work to the shop in order to try to clean up, even though it kind of doesn't look like it right now. You will see in a second. Well, I got rid of this shelf. There's some stuff I'm still throwing out. I completely cleaned out my basement. Like I said, I've spent 2 full days just working on the house and cleaning stuff up. I looked at the instructions for my quick jack and realized apparently I was using them backwards the whole time, even though using them this way doesn't seem to make any difference at all, because it still picks up exactly the same. So there's that. Then I get to, I've cleaned up a little bit of this shelving down here. I moved a couple boxes, and I got some factory, like, streetcar parts hanging around. This is still a work in progress. There's a big hole there for something missing. Back here, I've cleaned up a bit. All these shelves, actually, things have their place now, and I can actually walk around in here. And, there's a big open area there. Bunch of open areas hanging around. But that's not the only change I made, because now I'm back to these. 7 months and $4,000 later, I've reverted back to having glasses again. Hopefully they can adjust on them and make it so that I can actually have my laser vision correction work this time. So we're waiting on that. I got another 3 months with these, so get used to them. Other than that, the car is back in the air. We have a bunch of stuff to do, like I said. I'm still debating what I want to do with the rear end. It's going to have to be straightened and rebuilt at some point. It's just, do I want to do that, or do I want to take the rear that's sitting in the back of the car already and put that in instead? I got this Ford 9-inch sitting down here with a pumpkin, or with a gear set already in it. It's got brakes. I just got to swap over the calipers and lines and put them on that one. But that will accomplish exactly what we're trying to do with this. And I believe that that is actually straight. So I'm thinking about putting that just back in. Plus I can take a little bit of lead off the car, which is nice because that thing weighs a lot more than that rear. And it's going to accomplish the same things. Like I said, I was with the carrier that's in this rear. I can't put a spool in it, so I've had to run it open. That's why I had to get it to the racetrack. That's all I had for parts. Now I picked up a box of carriers from my brother, and I think they're in there, but actually, no, one's on the shelf because I had to pull the snapped ring gear off of it, but that's still fine. So I got a 3 and a 2 series carrier from him. This is going to need to be rebuilt when I go to Stafford next year anyway, because I'm going to have to put gears in that, like that rear there. But I can't have it be that carrier, because that carrier is that stupid single window one. Completely useless. You don't want it. So this one, I know it's straight. I definitely straightened it. I'm thinking maybe we throw that in, just check it out, string it, see what happens. And I know it's a little bit less gear than what I really want to run right now, but if I can get away with it with a crate motor, I'm sure I could get away with it with the built motor. We'll give it a shot, I think. Well, guys, yet again, I get sidetracked by doing things that, well, life kind of needs done. So I'm sitting here under my $500 F-250 Power Stroke diesel plow truck and working on brakes because, well, the rears kind of, well, were locked up and stuff. And I pulled the bracket off and the brake pads. I could tell which side was locked up and hot because they fell out. There's the pads on the ground. I'm going to go get a brand new set. There's a caliper. That thing is worked. But I got to run a new line. Somebody's been in here before fixing stuff and maintaining it. All the bolts came out, which is shocking. This parking brake drum inside the rotor thing, a lot of people know what that is, came apart and it was hitting the studs on the axle, or hub, I should say. And it was just trash. I just pulled it out. I'm like, this thing's so rotted, I don't think there was a parking brake anyway. So I got to run a line from that side over because all the brake lines blew out the second I touched them. So I saw the one from the, you know, front to back, and that one had about 3 compression fittings in it. So somebody's obviously fixed that. So I got to get to work on this, get this ready. I got to go to my auto parts store and pick up a cheapest set of rear pads I could possibly buy because, whoops. But again, in the bag, brand new caliper and bracket, and everything's ready to go. I got flex hoses, I got everything. So, and not to mention, I broke the camera lens on my phone, which I use to film with, and that's great. So now I need a new phone because I can't afford an actual camera. Either way, thank you all so much for watching. We're gonna get back to work on the car as soon as more parts come in and I figure out what I'm gonna do, but we have so much to do on that thing, and I kind of got a little sidetracked. I took some days off of work this week because I just wanted some time, and I cleaned out the shop and made life a little bit better, and I'm making this truck better. I figure it's a $500 truck. Why not be able to use it instead of keeping it just for plowing? The heck with it, you know, I bought it, I might as well use it. So we're gonna get back to work on the car. I just needed a little bit of a break, but thank you all again for hanging in there with me. You gotta trust me, I really do have better things coming. Apparently I've got a new phone coming as well, but better things are on the horizon. You just got to bear with me. That's all I'm asking you to do, is bear with me. And we found out a lot about that car this time, and fixed a lot too. And well, there's a lot left to fix. So thank you all again. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. It would mean so much to me, and really help me get the word out about DIYing and short track racing and doing your own mechanic work. And that's pretty much what I'm doing right now, and I greatly appreciate every single one of you that helps me out and that subscribes and does everything for me. And tell you what, it's been a fun ride so far, just trying to rebuild the channel. And obviously we're still working a lot and trying to make it better, but you know, things happen slowly. But tell me about it. Thank you all again, I appreciate it. Until next time.